The Galactic Archive ship Eternal Memory drifted through the cold void between stars. Its crystalline hull had traveled the same path for 12,000 years, carrying within it the collective knowledge of over 900 civilized species. Archivist Catherine Val stood before the central display, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence as she studied the warning that filled the screen. Galactic Records Classification, DATHWORLD Category Omega. System Designation, Sol 3 Local Name, Earth. Status, Do Not Approach. Threat Level, Absolute. Catherine Val had served as primary archivist for 300 years. In all that time, she had never seen a classification this severe. Category Omega was reserved for planets that had destroyed survey teams, consumed entire fleets, or harbored life forms so dangerous that their very existence threatened galactic civilization. There were only 4 such worlds in the entire database. Sol 3 was the newest addition. "Archivist," said a voice behind her. She turned to find Survey Commander Torvin standing at the entrance to the archive chamber. His gray scales shimmered under the blue light of the data crystals. "The Council has received your request. They want to know why you are accessing restricted files." "Because the classification makes no sense," Catherine Val replied. "I have been studying the original survey reports from Sol 3. The planet was first observed 4,000 years ago. At that time, the dominant species had barely discovered metalworking. They were rated Primitive Class 7. Now they are classified as an Omega threat. What happened?" Torvin moved closer, his claws clicking against the polished floor. "That information is above my clearance level. Above yours too, I suspect." "Not anymore." Catherine Val touched a control and the display filled with text. "I filed a formal research request through the Archive Authority. They granted me full access this morning. Whatever happened at Sol 3, I intend to understand it." The commander's scales shifted to a darker shade, a sign of discomfort among his people. "Archivist, I would advise caution. Some knowledge is preserved not to be shared, but to serve as warning." "Then let us see what we are being warned about." She began with the earliest records. Sol 3 had been discovered by a Velthari exploration vessel during a routine mapping expedition. The planet was small, rocky, and unremarkable in most respects. It orbited a yellow star at a distance that allowed liquid water to exist on its surface. This alone made it interesting, as water worlds capable of supporting carbon-based life were relatively rare. The initial survey noted that Sol 3 possessed an unusually thick atmosphere, a powerful magnetic field, and a single large moon that created significant tidal forces. The gravity was moderate, the radiation levels acceptable, and the temperature range extreme but survivable. Nothing in the physical parameters suggested danger. Then came the biological survey. Catherine Val read the first report with growing unease. The Velthari biologist had documented over 8 million distinct species on the planet's surface alone. The oceans contained millions more. Every ecological niche was filled with life competing violently for resources. Predators hunted prey. Prey developed defenses. Parasites infected hosts. Diseases spread through populations. The entire planet was locked in an endless war of survival. "Their biosphere is unstable," the Velthari biologist had written. "Species rise and fall within geological moments. Mass extinctions occur regularly, wiping out the majority of life forms. Yet the planet always recovers, and the new species that emerge are invariably more competitive than those that came before. This world does not nurture life. It forges it." Catherine Val paused at that phrase. It forges it. She had studied hundreds of life-bearing worlds, and none had been described in such terms. The survey team had made brief contact with the dominant species. These creatures called themselves humans. They were bipedal, endothermic, and possessed a level of intelligence that the Velthari found concerning. The humans had only recently developed agriculture and basic metalworking, yet they displayed problem-solving abilities that surpass species millions of years more advanced. They adapt too quickly, the survey report noted. We observed a human settlement facing a drought. Within a single generation, they had developed irrigation systems, water storage methods, and trade networks to import resources from distant regions. When we returned 10 years later, they had completely transformed their environment. This rate of adaptation is unprecedented. The initial classification was Deathworld Class 3, Primitive Species 7, Dangerous Environment, Primitive Inhabitants. Standard protocols recommended limited monitoring and no direct intervention. Catherine Val scrolled forward through the records. For the next 2,000 years, Sol 3 received only occasional observation. The humans continued to develop, though at a pace that seemed slow by galactic standards. They built cities, created written languages, established empires. They fought wars against each other with increasing sophistication. They developed philosophy, mathematics, and early science. Then, approximately 500 years ago, everything changed. A Nethrani trading vessel had made unauthorized contact with a human settlement. The Nethrani were known for their aggressive commercial practices, and they had hoped to establish an exploitative trade relationship with the primitive species. What happened next had been classified at the highest levels for centuries. Catherine Val opened the sealed file. The Nethrani ship had landed near a coastal city and offered to trade advanced technology for local resources. The humans had welcomed them initially. Within weeks, the Nethrani had established a trading post and begun extracting valuable minerals from the surrounding region. Within months, the humans had reverse-engineered the Nethrani translation devices. Within a year, they had figured out the basic principles behind the Nethrani propulsion systems. Within 5 years, they had built their own spacecraft. The Nethrani had not understood what they had done. They had given fire to a species that had been waiting for exactly such an opportunity. The humans did not simply copy Nethrani technology. They improved it. They combined it with their own innovations. They asked questions that the Nethrani had never thought to ask, and they found answers that should have taken millennia to discover. The report ended with a single line that made Catherine Val's blood run cold. The Nethrani trading vessel Prophet Seeker departed Sol 3 on standard date 4721. It was pursued by a human vessel of unknown configuration. Neither ship was ever seen again. Commander Torvin had been reading over her shoulder. Now, you understand why the classification exists. No, Catherine Val said slowly. This explains why they were upgraded to Deathworld Class 1. It does not explain the Omega classification. What happened after? That is what I am afraid you will discover. The next section of records covered what the Galactic Archives called the observation period. After the Nethrani incident, the Council of Species had voted to place Sol 3 under permanent surveillance. Stealth drones were positioned throughout the solar system. Communication intercepts were established. Every aspect of human development was monitored and recorded. Catherine Val read through centuries of reports with growing amazement. The humans had not stopped developing after their encounter with the Nethrani. If anything, they had accelerated. They built more ships. They established colonies on their neighboring planets. They developed weapons of terrifying power. They created nuclear fission weapons, she said aloud, unable to contain her shock. They used them on each other. Twice, Torvin confirmed. The first species in recorded history to use atomic weapons in warfare. Most civilizations that discover nuclear technology destroy themselves within a few generations. The humans survived. How? We are not entirely certain. They came close to extinction several times. Their records show numerous incidents where they nearly triggered global nuclear war. Yet somehow, they always stepped back from the edge. Some analysts believe it is luck. Others think it is something inherent in their psychology. They are capable of great destruction, but also great restraint. Catherine Val continued reading. The observation reports documented human expansion throughout their solar system. They built habitats in orbit around their planet. They established mining operations on asteroids. They sent probes to the outer planets and beyond. Each year, their technology grew more sophisticated. Then came the first contact incident. A Korathi diplomatic vessel had been traveling through the region when it experienced a critical drive failure. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel, dangerously close to Sol 3. The Korathi had immediately broadcast a distress signal, expecting rescue from the nearest civilized system. The humans responded instead. Catherine Val read the Korathi captain's report with fascination. The humans had detected the distress signal within minutes. They had launched a rescue mission within hours. When they reached the disabled vessel, they had offered immediate assistance without asking for anything in return. They were friendly, Catherine Val asked, surprised by this turn in the narrative. Extremely, Torvin said. The Korathi were given food, medical treatment, and technical assistance. The humans repaired their ship using improvised methods that the Korathi engineers found impossible. They sent the vessel on its way with gifts and an invitation to return. That does not sound like an Omega threat. Keep reading. The Korathi incident triggered a debate within the Council of Species. Some members argued that the humans should be welcomed into galactic civilization. They were clearly intelligent, technologically capable, and had demonstrated compassion toward strangers. Others pointed to their violent history and urged caution. The debate was settled by the Vrakathi. The Vrakathi were an ancient species, one of the founders of the Council. They had watched over galactic civilization for millions of years. When they spoke, others listened. Their representative addressed the Council with a warning that Catherine Val found chilling. We have studied the humans extensively, the Vrakathi representative had said. They are not simply another intelligent species. They are something we have never encountered before. Their minds work differently than ours. They do not merely solve problems. They transform them. They do not adapt to their environment. They reshape it. They do not accept limitations. They overcome them. This sounds like praise, a council member had objected. It is an assessment of risk, the Vrakathi replied. Consider this, the humans developed from stone tools to space travel in less than 10,000 years. Most species require 1,000,000 years to achieve similar progress. Some never do. The humans are not faster than us. They are fundamentally different. Their rate of advancement is not slowing. It is accelerating. What does that mean for us? It means that within a few centuries, they will surpass us. Within a few millennia, they will be beyond our comprehension. We must decide now whether we wish to be their partners or their obstacles. The Council had voted for isolation. The humans were to be left alone. No contact, no trade, no interference. Sol 3 was classified as a restricted zone, and all species were forbidden from entering the system. For a time, the policy worked. The humans continued to develop, unaware that they were being watched. They sent exploration vessels deeper into space. They established communication networks that spanned their solar system. They debated among themselves about whether intelligent life existed elsewhere in the universe. Then came the Hegemony War. Catherine Val had studied this conflict in her early education. The Drath hegemony had been a militaristic empire that controlled hundreds of systems. They had challenged the Council's authority and launched a campaign of conquest across the galactic arm. The war had lasted for centuries and cost billions of lives. What she had not known was that the war had nearly reached Sol 3. A Drath fleet had passed through the region during the final stages of the conflict. They had detected the human presence and decided to eliminate the potential threat. Standard hegemony doctrine called for the destruction of any unaligned civilization that might one day oppose them. 12 Drath warships entered the Sol system. None of them left. The observation drones recorded everything. The humans had detected the incoming fleet while it was still at the edge of their system. They had immediately mobilized their entire military force. Every ship, every weapon, every resource was dedicated to defense. The Drath had expected an easy victory. They possessed superior technology, greater numbers, and centuries of combat experience. What they encountered was something else entirely. The humans fought with a ferocity that defied analysis. They used tactics that no civilized species would consider. They sacrificed ships and lives without hesitation. They turned asteroids into weapons. They deployed electronic warfare systems that corrupted Drath computer networks. They even boarded enemy vessels and engaged in hand-to-hand combat. The battle lasted 3 days. By the end, the Drath fleet had been completely destroyed. The humans had lost 60% of their military force. They considered it a victory. They were outmatched in every measurable way, Catherine Val said quietly. How did they win? The same way they always do, Torvin replied. They refused to accept defeat. The Drath expected them to surrender when the odds became hopeless. Instead, they fought harder. They invented new weapons during the battle itself. They adapted faster than the Drath could respond. By the end, the Drath commanders were convinced they were facing a trap, that the humans must have hidden reinforcements somewhere. They never imagined that such a small force could cause such destruction. And that is why they were classified as Omega. No, that is why they were upgraded to Deathworld Class 1. The Omega classification came later, after the humans discovered that they had been under surveillance the entire time. The discovery of the observation network had been inevitable. Catherine Val understood that now, reading through the technical analyses. The humans had developed their own sensor technology at an astonishing rate. Within decades of the Drath attack, they had begun detecting anomalies throughout their solar system. Strange energy signatures, unexplained communication bursts, objects that behaved in ways that defied natural explanation. They had found the stealth drones. The Council had expected outrage. They had prepared contingency plans for a human attack on the observation network. Instead, the humans did something no one had predicted. They captured the drones intact. They studied them. They learned. Within 5 years, the humans had decoded the observation network's communication protocols. They had traced the signal pathways back to their sources. They had mapped the entire surveillance system that had been watching them for centuries. And then they sent a message. Catherine Val opened the archive transmission. A human face appeared on her display, a female with dark hair and steady eyes. She spoke in perfect galactic standard, a language that should have been completely unknown to her species. To the Council of Species and all who watch us, the human said, my name is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We know you are there. We have known for some time. We understand why you chose to observe rather than contact us. We have studied our own history. We know what we are capable of. The Admiral paused, and Catherine Val saw something in her expression that was hard to identify. It might have been sadness. It might have been determination. We are not going to pretend that we are harmless, Admiral Chen continued. We are a violent species. We have fought among ourselves since the beginning of our existence. We have committed atrocities against our own kind. We have nearly destroyed ourselves more times than we care to count. Your fear of us is not unreasonable. But we are also more than our violence. We love. We create. We dream of better futures. We sacrifice for each other and for strangers we will never meet. The same capacity that makes us dangerous also makes us capable of great compassion. We do not ask for your trust. We know we have not earned it. We only ask for the opportunity to prove ourselves. We wish to join the galactic community, not as conquerors but as partners. We have much to learn from you and perhaps some things to teach in return. If you choose to maintain your isolation, we will respect that choice. We will continue to develop on our own. We will find our own path among the stars. But know this, we are coming. Not with weapons, not with demands, with curiosity, with hope. We have looked up at the stars for all of our existence, wondering if we were alone. Now we know the answer, and we cannot pretend that knowledge does not exist. The choice is yours. We will be waiting. The transmission ended. Catherine Val sat in silence for a long moment. What did the council decide? She finally asked. They debated for years, Torvin said. Factions formed. Some wanted to accept the humans. Others wanted to destroy them before they became too powerful. A few suggested that the humans should be tested. Tested how? Torvin's scales darkened again. The Vrakathi proposed a scenario. They called it the impossible choice. A situation designed to reveal the true nature of human psychology. If the humans passed the test, they would be invited to join the council. If they failed, the isolation would be made permanent. What was the test? A refugee fleet was directed toward the Sol system. Millions of Keithrani civilians fleeing a plague that had devastated their homeworld. Their ships were failing. Their supplies were exhausted. They had nowhere else to go. Catherine Val felt her heart quicken. The plague, was it contagious to humans? Yes, the Vrakathi made certain of that. The humans would have to choose, save the refugees and risk their own population, or protect themselves and let millions die. The Vrakathi believed that no species would choose to sacrifice their own safety for strangers. They expected the humans to turn the refugees away. What happened? The humans accepted every single refugee. Torvin brought up additional records on the display. Images of human medical facilities filled with Keithrani patients. Human scientists working around the clock to develop treatments. Human volunteers caring for alien children whose parents had died in transit. The plague spread through the human population, Torvin continued. It killed over 50 million of them before they developed a cure. 50 million humans died to save strangers from a species they had never encountered before. That is incredible. That is not the part that disturbed the council. What disturbed them was what the humans did next. What did they do? They traced the plague back to its source. They analyzed the genetic markers and determined that it had been deliberately engineered. They found evidence that the refugee fleet had been directed toward their system intentionally. They discovered the test. Yes, and they were not pleased. A new transmission appeared on the display. Admiral Chen again, older now, her face marked by years of struggle. Her voice was calm, but there was something cold in her eyes. To the Council of Species, she said, we have completed our analysis of what you call the impossible choice. We understand what you were trying to accomplish. We understand that you wanted to see if we would sacrifice strangers to protect ourselves. We did not, we never would have. That is not who we are. But you should understand something about us. We do not forget. We do not forgive manipulation and cruelty masquerading as tests. 50 million of our people died because you wanted to study our psychology. Millions of Keithrani suffered because you used them as tools. We are not angry. Anger fades. What we feel is something deeper. We now understand exactly what kind of civilization we are dealing with. One that treats suffering as an experiment. One that views life as data to be collected. We will still extend our hand in friendship. We will still welcome any species that comes to us in peace, but we will never trust you, and we will never allow ourselves to be vulnerable to you again. From this day forward, we will build our strength until no test you could devise would ever threaten us. We will reach beyond your surveillance. We will go places you cannot follow. And one day, when we are ready, we will return to this conversation from a position you cannot ignore. We are humanity. We remember, we endure, we overcome. See you soon. The transmission ended. Catherine Val stared at the blank display. That was 200 years ago, she said slowly. What have they done since then? That is the problem, Torvin replied. We do not know. After that transmission, the humans began actively dismantling our observation network. Within a decade, we had lost all surveillance capability in their system. Within 2 decades, we had lost contact with every probe within 100 light-years of Sol 3. They have been silent for 200 years. Not silent, absent. We cannot find them, we cannot track them. We have no idea what they have been doing or how far they have spread. That is why the Omega classification was created, not because the humans are dangerous, because they are unknown. Catherine Val spent the next several days studying every fragment of information the archives contained about the humans. She read scientific analyses of their biology, their psychology, their social structures. She reviewed the few pieces of human art and literature that had been collected. She listened to their music, watched their visual recordings, studied their languages. The more she learned, the more she understood why the Council was afraid. Humans were not simply aggressive. They were relentlessly creative. Their minds seemed designed to find solutions to problems that other species would consider unsolvable. When faced with obstacles, they did not go around them or wait for them to disappear. They transformed them into opportunities. Their history was filled with examples. When their planet's resources grew scarce, they developed technologies to create more. When diseases threatened their populations, they invented medicine. When their environment turned hostile, they adapted it to their needs. Every challenge they faced only made them stronger. And they learned from their enemies. Catherine Val found this aspect of human psychology particularly fascinating. Most species avoided conflict with superior opponents. Humans seemed to seek it out. They studied those who defeated them, absorbed their techniques, and emerged more powerful than before. The Nethrani had given them spaceflight. The Drath had taught them advanced warfare. The Council's surveillance network had given them a model for their own intelligence operations. Every species that had threatened them had only accelerated their development. You are still researching, Commander Torvin said, entering the archive chamber on the 3rd day. Have you found what you were looking for? I have found questions, Catherine Val replied. The Omega classification is based on the assumption that the humans are a threat, but I have found no evidence of unprovoked aggression. Every conflict they have been involved in was either defensive or in response to perceived attacks. The classification is not based on their past behavior. It is based on their potential. That seems unjust. Perhaps, but consider this. 200 years ago, the humans were confined to a single star system. They possessed technology roughly equivalent to our own. Now we cannot even locate them. What does that suggest about their current capabilities? Before Catherine Val could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the ship. The Eternal Memory had never activated its emergency systems in all the centuries she had served aboard. She felt a chill run through her body as red lights began to flash. What is happening? She demanded. Torvin was already moving toward the command center. Unknown contact detected. Multiple vessels incoming at high velocity. They reached the bridge to find the crew in a state of controlled panic. The main display showed a tactical overview of the surrounding space. A dozen points of light were converging on their position from multiple directions. Identification, Torvin demanded. Unknown, the sensor operator replied. The drive signatures do not match anything in our database. The vessels are using propulsion systems we have never seen before. How is that possible? We have records of every spacefaring species in the galaxy. Every known species, Catherine Val said quietly. There is one species we have not observed for 2 centuries. The bridge fell silent. Everyone present understood what she was suggesting. If those are human ships, Torvin said slowly, then we need to leave immediately. The Omega protocols are clear. We cannot outrun them. the navigation officer reported. "They are already too close. Their velocity exceeds our maximum sustainable speed." Then we fight. The Eternal Memory is an archive vessel. We have no weapons. Torvin's scales had gone pale, a sign of fear among his species. Then we surrender. Perhaps they will show mercy. "Wait," Catherine Val said. She was studying the sensor data carefully. "They are not approaching in attack formation. Their weapon systems are not active. They appear to be maintaining a defensive posture." "How can you tell?" "I have been studying human military doctrine. This is not what an attack looks like. This is an escort formation." A communication alert chimed. An incoming transmission was being received on a frequency that the Eternal Memory systems barely recognized. "Accept the transmission," Torvin ordered after a moment's hesitation. The main display shifted to show a human face, a young man with light brown skin and calm eyes. He wore a uniform that Catherine Val did not recognize, simple and practical in design. "Archive Vessel Eternal Memory," the human said in flawless galactic standard. "This is Captain James Okonkwo of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. Please do not be alarmed. We are here to ensure your safe passage through this region." "Safe passage," Torvin managed. "From what?" "There is a gravitational anomaly along your current trajectory. Our sensors detected it several days ago. If you continued on your present course, your ship would have been destroyed within the hour." The sensor officer frantically checked the data. After a moment, his face went pale. "He is correct. There is a collapsed dark matter formation directly ahead. Our sensors did not detect it because it is absorbing all radiation. We would have flown directly into it." "We will guide you around the hazard," Captain Okonkwo continued. "It should add approximately 6 hours to your journey. We apologize for the delay." Catherine Val stepped forward. "Captain, may I ask a question?" "Of course." "How did you know we were here? How did you detect the anomaly? And why are you helping us? According to our records, your species has reason to despise the Council." The human smiled, and there was something in that expression that Catherine Val found unexpectedly warm. "We have been monitoring this shipping lane for decades. When we detected your approach, we calculated your trajectory and realized the danger. As for why we are helping you, well, that is simple. You needed help. We were in a position to provide it. Even after what the Council did to your people." "What the Council did was wrong. It caused great suffering. We have not forgotten and we never will. But that does not mean we must become like them. Punishing innocents for the sins of their leaders would make us no better than those who wronged us. We choose a different path." "You would help your enemies." "You are not our enemies. You are archivists preserving knowledge for future generations. That is a noble calling. And honestly, we stopped thinking of the Council as enemies long ago. We have moved beyond such categories." Catherine Val felt something shift in her understanding. "Then, what are we to you?" "Neighbors, fellow travelers, potential friends if you are interested. The universe is vast and often dangerous. We have learned that survival is easier when you work together rather than alone." The human escort guided the Eternal Memory safely around the dark matter anomaly. During the 6-hour journey, Catherine Val found herself in extended communication with Captain Okonkwo. She had 1,000 questions, and he seemed willing to answer every one. What she learned changed everything she thought she knew. The humans had not spent the past 2 centuries hiding. They had spent them growing. Their civilization now spanned hundreds of star systems across multiple galactic arms. They had developed technologies that made the Council's most advanced achievements look primitive by comparison. They had encountered dozens of new species and welcomed them all into their growing community. "We call it the United Worlds," Captain Okonkwo explained. "A voluntary association of civilizations that choose to work together for mutual benefit. No species is forced to join. No species is forced to leave. We share knowledge, resources, and protection. In exchange, we ask only that members treat each other with respect and contribute what they can. How many species have joined? 147 at last count, including several that the Council had classified as extinct. Catherine Val was stunned. Extinct? How is that possible? The Council's classifications are not always accurate. Some species were listed as extinct because they chose to flee Council space rather than submit to its rules. Others were victims of conflicts that the Council preferred to forget. We found them, living in hidden colonies beyond the galactic rim. We offered them a place in our community. And the species we have never contacted, the ones in systems that Council considered too dangerous to approach. We contacted them. Many of them are now our closest allies. The Vraxian, for example, were classified as Category Delta hostile, extremely aggressive, territorially protective. Turns out they had been defending themselves against Council survey teams for millennia. When we approached them peacefully, with respect and without weapons, they welcomed us. Their ambassador currently sits on our governing council. Commander Torvin, who had been listening to the conversation, interrupted. You are describing an entirely parallel civilization, one that has developed alongside the Council without our knowledge. Not exactly parallel, Captain Okonkwo said. We have been aware of the Council's activities throughout. We simply chose not to interfere. Your civilization has its own path to walk. We have no desire to force you onto ours. Then why reveal yourselves now? Why save us? Why have this conversation at all? The human was quiet for a moment. Because we believe the time has come for a new relationship between our peoples. The Omega classification has served its purpose. It kept us separate long enough for both civilizations to mature. But isolation cannot last forever. Eventually, we will need to learn how to coexist. You want to open diplomatic relations with the Council. We want to open the door. Whether anyone walks through it is up to them. When the Eternal Memory finally reached safe space, the human escort vessels pulled alongside for a final farewell. Captain Okonkwo appeared on the display one last time. Archivist Catherine Val, he said, you have been studying our history. I would like to offer you something in return. A data stream appeared on her console. The file was massive, larger than anything she had ever received. She examined the header information and felt her breath catch. This is a complete archive of human history, she said. Everything from your earliest records to the present day. Everything we know about ourselves. Our triumphs and our failures, our greatest achievements and our darkest moments. We believe that understanding is the first step toward trust. Perhaps, if the Council understands who we truly are, they will no longer fear us. And if the Council still fears you after learning the truth, then at least their fear will be based on reality rather than imagination. That is a start. The human escort vessels engaged their drives and vanished into the darkness between stars. Catherine Val stood alone in the archive chamber, surrounded by 12,000 years of accumulated knowledge, holding in her hands a gift that would change everything. She began to read. 3 months later, Catherine Val stood before the full Council of Species. The assembly chamber was packed with representatives from over 900 civilizations. She had never addressed such a gathering before. She had never expected to. Distinguished representatives, she began. I come before you today to recommend that the Omega classification for Sol 3 be rescinded. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several delegates expressed shock or outrage. The Vrakathi representative simply watched with ancient, unreadable eyes. I have spent my career studying the archives, Catherine Val continued. I have read every record we possess about the humans. I have reviewed every analysis, every assessment, every warning, and I have come to a conclusion that may surprise you. We were wrong about them, not in our assessment of their capabilities. They are everything we feared and more. They have surpassed us in almost every measurable way. Their technology is beyond our comprehension. Their civilization is larger than we imagined possible. But we were wrong about their intentions. The humans do not wish to conquer us. They do not wish to destroy us. They do not even wish to dominate us. They wish to befriend us. They have been waiting patiently for us to be ready to accept that friendship. They could have attacked us at any time. They could have revealed themselves in force and demanded submission. Instead, they saved an archive vessel from destruction and asked for nothing in return. They gave us access to their entire history, hiding nothing. They treated us with kindness we did not deserve. We classified them as a threat because they were different, because they developed faster than we could explain, because their psychology did not fit our models. But difference is not danger. Strangeness is not hostility. We were afraid of the unknown, and we let that fear shape our policies for centuries. It is time to choose a different path. The Vrakathi representative rose from his seat. The chamber fell silent immediately. When the Vrakathi spoke, everyone listened. Archivist Kethrin Val, he said, his voice ancient and weary. We have studied the humans longer than any other species. We created the tests that shaped their development. We made decisions that caused great suffering. We did these things because we believed they were necessary. We were wrong. The admission sent shockwaves through the chamber. The Vrakathi had never admitted error before. They were considered infallible by many species. The humans terrified us, the Vrakathi continued. They still do. Their potential is limitless in ways that we cannot predict, but we have learned something from observing them all these years, something we should have understood from the beginning. The humans are not our enemies. They are our future. Everything we have built they will surpass. Everything we have achieved they will improve upon. Everything we have protected they will expand. We can fight them and lose. We can hide from them and become irrelevant, or we can join them and grow. I support the archivist's recommendation. Let the Omega classification be removed. Let the humans be welcomed as partners. Let us begin a new chapter in galactic history. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. By a margin of 742 to 168, the Council agreed to rescind the Omega classification. A diplomatic mission would be sent to establish formal relations with the United Worlds. 6 months later, a human delegation arrived at the Council's capital world. They came not in warships, but in vessels designed for comfort and ceremony. They brought gifts, greetings, and an invitation to join the United Worlds as founding members of a new galactic government. Kethrin Val was there to witness the ceremony. She watched as Admiral Chen, now old but still sharp-eyed, shook hands with representatives from species that had feared humanity for millennia. She watched as barriers built over centuries crumbled in a single afternoon. "You seem thoughtful," said a voice beside her. Captain Okonkwo had found her in the crowd. "I am thinking about the archives," she admitted. "For 12,000 years, we have recorded the history of galactic civilization. I always believed that record was complete. Now I realize how much we missed." "The best archives are not static," the captain said. "They grow, they adapt. They incorporate new knowledge and new perspectives. Your archives are not ending. They are entering their most interesting phase." Is that what it is like to be human? Always moving forward, always incorporating new experiences. It is what it is like to be alive. We are all on a journey, whether we acknowledge it or not. The destination is less important than the path we take to reach it. Kethrin Val considered this for a moment. The galactic records will need to be updated. The Omega classification will be removed, but what should replace it? What designation properly describes your species now? Captain Okonkwo smiled. "How about just our name? Earth, humanity, a species like any other with strengths and weaknesses, hopes and fears. We do not need a special classification. We just need to be accepted for what we are." "And what are you?" neighbors, fellow travelers, friends if you will have us. Catherine Val extended her hand in the human gesture she had learned from the archives. Captain Okonkwo took it with a warmth that surprised her. "Welcome to the galactic community," she said. "We have been here all along," he replied. "We were just waiting for you to notice." Above them, the stars burned with the light of 1,000 civilizations, old and new, coming together at last. The Omega classification was gone. The warnings had been lifted. The do not approach order had been replaced with something better. Welcome. The galactic records were updated that night. The entry for Sol 3 now read simply, Earth, home of humanity, founding world of the United Worlds. Classification, ally, status, open, threat level none. Recommendation, approach with curiosity, respect, and an open mind. You may find more than you expected. And in the archives of the eternal memory, Catherine Val added one final note to her research file, a personal observation that would be preserved for future generations. The humans were never the threat we feared. They were the partners we needed. We spent centuries trying to understand what made them dangerous. We should have spent those centuries trying to understand what made them great. Their capacity for violence is matched only by their capacity for love. Their ambition is tempered by their compassion. Their strength comes not from their technology or their numbers, but from their refusal to accept that anything is impossible. They are humanity, they remember, they endure, they overcome, and now at last they are our friends.